Good evening and welcome to Inferno TV. Alongside me I've got John Donovan from Icetime TV, and we're going to be having a look at a little review of last week's games, maybe taking a look at some of the stats across the league and some of the news there's been some news tonight, and some other things that are going on around the league, and also talking about this weekend's games that are coming up. We've got a home doubleheader, which we're really looking forward to. An opportunity, obviously, to get some strong points there. So, shall we have a chat first about last weekend's games, John, and see what you made of that?
First of all, John, I want to find out what we've done wrong, or what I've done wrong, because there were 6 of us here last week, and now there's you and I. So
I don't think it's you, John.
Are you sure?
No, I think it's me.
Because I can go.
It's not you, it's me.
Fine.
Have you heard that before?
Many times.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to the serious stuff.
Yes.
Last week, well, I didn't have the pleasure of going to Nottingham because my other chore in life is I'm a Cardiff City fan, so I was at the Cardiff City game on Saturday, but obviously followed the game in the evening, whilst following the rugby at the same time, and had the pleasure of speaking to some of the guys on Sunday before the game, some of the players and coaching staff. And they took positives out of the game. They felt it was certainly the first 20 minutes was a solid performance and dominated the Panthers for the majority of that first period. But it sounded like the Panthers crowd that had been silenced a little was brought back into it by the fight that took place near the end of the first period. Maybe changed a little bit of momentum. The game was tied up, and then it was nip and tuck through the second and third, and Nottingham scored a very good goal, and then there was an unfortunate bounce and maybe got the luck on the night. So a tight game, nip and tuck, disappointing because with Nottingham's slightly shorter bench and the need perhaps to set down a statement on a bigger ice against a conference and league title rival. I know a lot of us were hoping for the 2 points, but certainly perhaps a marked improvement on what had happened at Sheffield a few weeks before.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. Like yourself, I spoke to a couple of people as well. We were discussing this beforehand. Some people who'd been along to the game, and they were a little bit disappointed, but I think that's probably because expectations have been raised. Panthers had a few injury issues. But bearing in mind the recent Sheffield performance where we'd struggled on the big ice, I think you make a valid point in that. And the fact that the guys on the team and coaching staff were pleased with making progress, I think that's encouraging. So I think the best thing to do is take positives out of that, obviously. We have a tremendous home record at the moment, but I think as Todd touched on in the interview you did with him on the weekend, really we do need to be looking to start getting some points on the big ice.
Well, we need a marker game at some point. I remember last year, and I can't remember, I think maybe we beat Sheffield away in the Challenge Cup or something like that, but I remember going to Belfast the first weekend of October, and we were still struggling to win those big games on the big ice, and the 2 games we played, unfortunately we lost both. We played very well, and it was kind of, is this going to be the story of the season where we can challenge teams but not win the road games at crucial stages when we have to? And I think it just takes one game to win in either the Sheffield Arena or going to Belfast or going to Nottingham. The Devils need to set down a marker game to show themselves, to show everybody that they can get results on in those environments. As Todd said in his interview, everybody's going to go into Sheffield and lose. Everybody's going to go into Nottingham and lose. Everyone's going to go into Belfast and lose. But in the context of the season, we've probably got to pick up 1, maybe 2 wins in each of those arenas. So you're going to lose a couple of games. We've lost 1 in Nottingham in the league. Shake it off, but at some stage this season we're going to have to go in there and win a game or 2.
Yeah, I agree. I think that probably is the way we need to be looking at it. So then we had the visit of Fife. Obviously that is a long trip down for them, and it was great to see that they also brought some fans down with them. So thank you to the fans who made it down. We really appreciated seeing you in the building. We know we're near at home building, it's incredibly noisy. Couldn't generate quite as much noise in our building, thankfully. No. We managed to drown them out, but the Fife team this season looks a better team than last season to me. Seems to have more pace. And we touched on it last week, and I still would say that I was a bit surprised when they announced Brown as their netminder, because I thought he'd had some issues with Hull. But he looked a bit more solid in the Fife net, and maybe that's to do with the patterns that they're playing. What did you make of Fife?
I thought Fife looked a decent 5-on-5 team. I thought that the power play killed them a little bit, and the fact that they couldn't capitalise on a number of opportunities. And again, and I keep repeating myself with talking about big ice and small ice and this, that and the other, and it shouldn't make too much of a difference, and it shouldn't be a huge excuse. But if you're going to run a power play in Kirkcaldy where you've got a big ice and big zones, that is intrinsically different to running a power play in Cardiff. And perhaps it was the first time this season they've come onto a small ice pad and not had the ability to maybe fan out or spread out their players on the power play, which I know they like to do.
Yeah.
They like to play the defenseman wide, and maybe they weren't able to do that. So the lack of power play goals really sucked the momentum out of their game. But I thought 5-on-5 they looked okay. I think they've got more depth. Players like Dingle and Fox have put up good numbers throughout their career. We didn't see Kay because he was suspended, but he's put up decent points on the third line. I thought Cullen, Stewart, and Schoon looked an okay third unit and can probably put up some points there, which they haven't had previously. So I think they've got better depth. I liked Roux, I liked Paquette. Delay was a pretty mobile defenseman. They can all skate. So no, I think people when they said that Fife were perhaps poor on Sunday, I didn't think so. I thought 5-on-5 they were okay and gave the Devils something to handle. But I really think that the lack of offensive presence on their power play sucked a lot of the momentum out of their game.
Do you think they missed Nickerson on that performance? What did you make of that? Huge character for them the last couple of seasons.
He is a huge character, and we spoke last week that I actually think he's an underrated player. He's played in the Finnish league where you've got to be able to skate in, and he played big minutes for Fife last year, and he does bring a physical edge. He's the sort of player you might miss in Cardiff, because it's crash bang hockey on a small ice pad, and he's somebody who can create a spark and clear the net, what have you. But from the reports I've heard, when they play at home ice up in Kirkcaldy, they're a more mobile team this season across the three lines. So we touched upon it last week. They're a bit chalk and cheese in that Kirkcaldy, probably along with the Big Blue Tent, it's the hardest rink in the country to go into for different reasons than Cardiff. It's a bigger ice pad. It's a fast ice pad.
It's an intimidating ice pad.
It's an intimidating ice pad, and you've got that crowd element. But maybe Flyers don't travel quite so well, but I think over the course of the season they will have more depth over their three lines than they previously had. They've always had a couple of big scorers and a good first line, but 5-on-5 I thought they were okay, and they've got a little bit more depth this year, which should see them well.
So encouragement there for Fife, and we wish them well with their games, apart from when they play us, obviously.
Absolutely.
But I spoke to some of their fans after the game, and obviously I said to them, I'm hoping that you'll do well in your obviously in your conference, because that conference needs to be a bit more competitive, and I think it will be this season by the look of it. So it'll be interesting to see how they progress. But I think you're right. From what we've seen, they certainly look a stronger unit than they were previously.
I think it's an interesting point, and a few people have said this. Gareth, myself, talked about it in commentary. I don't know whether we're able to mention other shows, what have you. I listened to the Red Army Roundup guys podcast this week, which was a great podcast. I think Sean, who's on that, made the same point. Fife as a franchise, you're not quite sure where it's going to go, because you think it's got the potential to really build there. They can get 3,000 people in that arena. It's all right. It's an old school arena, but it's a great atmosphere. They're going to have a good home record. They're going to generate money out of there. They've never had any problems, financial problems at Fife particularly. It's a stable hockey community. The community really supports their players. Players want to go back there year in, year out. Yet they don't seem to be pushing on from that, 6th, 7th, 8th place. And, I grew up watching hockey in the late 80s, early 90s, where Fife were challenging for league titles and competing at the Wembley playoffs. And I know times have changed, but I just get the impression up there that they're stuck in a bit of a rut. And I think a lot of us around the league feel that there is more potential in that franchise. And I'm not sure what you do. There's great people up there. Todd Dutiem has been there for years. But whether they need something different or different management or just something, you feel that there is potential in that franchise that at the moment maybe isn't being realised.
No, I think that's probably fair. It'd be interesting to see if we see any changes during the season. The I don't know if this is the case or not, but have they maybe struggled to attract the very top end of the players to some extent? Because we probably won't know that, so we won't be able to answer that question.
No, we don't. We can only speculate, and they have always been a very, very well-run club. So you would anticipate that they're slightly on the conservative side in terms of always making sure they tick over and don't have those financial problems and what have you. And I'm not suggesting they put themselves in any kind of trouble at all, but you just wonder whether if they did speculate to accumulate a little more, whether they could really fill out that rink and push that franchise on, and maybe then success breeds success. You bring in sponsorship, you bring in media coverage, etc. So maybe not. We are just speculating. But I said on commentary, I love Fife. I've always grown up where it's been a traditional hockey base. They're my second favourite team in the league. All the great names of Steve Morier, Al Sims, Fred Polini, etc. I've got a real soft spot for them. I like it when we play them, but I just wonder whether they're a franchise that can push on and do more.
That's an interesting point. Thanks for bringing that up, John. There's been some signing news in the league tonight. So we hear that Ling is back with Panthers. What do you think he brings to them?
He brings experience and leadership, and he brings point production. A lot of people are going to immediately point to his age. Well, I don't think that argument holds water in Cardiff, because Steve Morier was a fantastic player who played Super League ice hockey into his 40s and continued to play hockey elsewhere. I think he's going to bring a guy, speaking on before the show, he can quarterback a power play. You can play him up the lines, you can play him down the lines, he can jump in at any spot. He could maybe go in there as the third line centre and just provide great depth, or if you need a scoring punch, he can actually still go and play on the first line or the second line. He just provides you with some versatility and an option. He knows how to win, he knows that city and that franchise, so it's not going to take him any time to fit in at all. So a lot of people are going to immediately focus on the age factor. To me, that's not an issue at all. I think it's quite a savvy pickup.
Well, maybe they were missing a little bit of glue when we saw them previously, and maybe he'll, or oil, whatever you want to call it, but maybe he'll add a bit of that. We know he's a quality player. We've seen him in the league previously. He's very dangerous. He can be very annoying as well, and that's the kind of player maybe that they needed. So he'll only improve them, in my mind.
Well, he's got a winning mentality, as have a lot of the rest of the players up there. So maybe it's not quite as a flamboyant a Panthers team as we've seen in recent years. Maybe it is a move back to that league title winning team where I think they actually got the chemistry right that year. Just savvy guys, savvy veterans who knew how to win. And you get the impression that maybe this year the Panthers are similar. We've seen them a couple of times now. I don't think they're as fast on the transition in previous years. I don't think they're maybe as silky as they have been in previous years. I think they're a little bit more hard-nosed. I think they've got some very good players who are great at puck management. They manage the puck, create, dish well. I like Moran. I've seen him a couple of times now. I think he's a big pickup. And they've just got maybe good leadership and a solid foundation this year to push on and not just be crowd entertainers, but actually maybe win the big one.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how they go, especially once Ling is in. We've also heard that Chuck Webber has issued a warning to his players and asked them to step up to the plate, so to speak. They probably haven't started off the season in the way that, well, they certainly haven't started off the season in the way that he was hoping. Maybe they've been in some games where they perhaps didn't show the amount of heart and desire that he was expecting. What have you made of the start of their season, really?
Well, I thought they were going to hit the ground running for similar reasons to Cardiff, in that continuity and consistency. Not quite the same. Cardiff brought back a lot of players that had been there last year. For Coventry, it wasn't players who had been in Coventry, but it was players that had played for Chuck Webber, and I thought they would immediately fit into his systems, and I thought they would get a bit of a jump on teams. They haven't, and reading some of his words this week, I think he feels sort of personally let down, a little bit hurt by some of the players. I think they are on a final warning. It's probably there's some guys playing for their jobs this weekend. He doesn't want to make changes. These are his guys. So I think that it's kind of stand and deliver time. He wants them this weekend to show that there's a spark, that they can play, and then perhaps from this weekend they can build their season. If things don't go well this weekend or the performances aren't there, I anticipate you'll see some changes in Coventry. So it's really sort of put up or shut up time for the players in Coventry this weekend.
Does the league need a more consistent players side, do you think?
I think the league needs all of its teams to be playing well. You know, we're a minority sport and only a 10-team league. I think you build media coverage and you build profile by having a strong league where everybody challenges. Certainly for Cardiff, we need a strong Blaze team, because as much as they're probably people's second rivals after Sheffield or what have you, they put bums on seats in Cardiff. It's our easiest away trip of the year. You want that rivalry, you want that intensity. So as a Cardiff focused person, I certainly want a strong Blaze franchise. It's just a little, I guess, disappointing. I think everyone watched the playoff weekend last year and just marvelled at the job Chuck Webber had done in terms of his systems and getting through games against two of the league's elite in Belfast and Sheffield, and how coaching and using the sum of all your parts rather than having Hollywood players can sometimes get you to an end goal. And we were all very, very interested to see what that Blaze team looked like this year, with him having a full summer to recruit his own players. And we all thought maybe he was a little bit of the messiah and he was going to be the greatest coach Britain had ever seen, and maybe he is fallible just like everybody else. But I think he's a little bit personally hurt, and I would expect a big reaction from the Blaze this weekend. And if he doesn't get it this time next week, I think we'll be talking about changes.
Well, let's hope they come out fighting, and they stand up for Brian Stewart and do a good job in front of him.
Absolutely.
Tremendous netminder, in my opinion.
Yes.
So this weekend we play the Dundee Stars and the Edinburgh Capitals. We're going to play Dundee Stars first, and I ran off some stats because I thought it'd be quite interesting maybe to have a look at some of the key players from those teams.
See, you're a stats guy, John. I make this stuff up as I go along, as I do in commentary. So
that's why I printed it off, John.
You're going to talk proper hockey now, okay.
Dundee first on Saturday night. They got an old friend who plays on the Dundee team, and I wasn't talking about Clarkson. Or have I just made that up? No. Bobby Chamont plays for Dundee. Yes. He's an old friend I've known for a long time, and a guy I've always rated. He's a guy that tends to maybe go in and out of games a bit, and in various clubs he's played at, fans say he's lazy, etc. But he's always consistently put up the points. And he's one of those people that when you write him off, he's the one who comes and bites you. So Dundee have started off much more strongly, I thought, this season. I haven't really touched on the stats now, I'm just covering off all the material. Sorry, John.
That's all right.
They have got a very familiar face playing for them.
They do.
They've obviously got Mark Lefebvre now coaching them as well, so they've got maybe, nothing against previous Dundee coaches, but a good solid coach with them as well. He seems to have done something with them. What do you make of Dundee as a prospect for this weekend?
Again, I think what Todd Calman said in his interview, and I think most people agree, that the league, everyone across the league, is improved by 20%, and that just means that teams have got more depth, and I think that applies to Dundee as well. I think they've got a first line that can probably go with most in the country, with Lyon Webber, Dickinson and Chamont, and I take your point about Chamont. He maybe drifts in and out of games, but at the end of the season he's always in the top 10, 15 point getters on the year. And you got Dougie Clarkson playing second line hockey, and we know he can pick up the points as well. Their netminder looks solid, a veteran. It looks like they've got a mobile defence, and they've run a lot of teams close this year. I think going to that bench coach role gives them a little bit of a foundation. You've actually got direction from the bench, which sometimes maybe a lower end franchise can do with, to have that clear leadership role. Taking on a Dundee team as Jeff Hutchins did, which maybe doesn't have the biggest resources in the league, and trying to play a 60-minute game yourself, that can be a bit depleting. So the fact that they've gone to a bench coach, I think, gives them more of a solid foundation. I think it'll be an interesting test. I think they'll come down with renewed belief that they can score goals and compete with every team in this league. And at the moment, although the Devils did improve this weekend, I was watching the pre-game interviews with Todd Dutien before the Flyers Devils game, and he said the Devils are conceding goals at the moment. So I think a lot of teams, until the Devils consistently put a few weekends together where they haven't conceded the amount of goals that they have previously, teams are going to come and play Cardiff at the moment. I think maybe the Devils are a little bit susceptible. So I think Saturday night will be an interesting game, and of course having Dougie Clarkson back in the building, a very popular player and a Challenge Cup winner, just brings an extra edge to it.
Yeah, and I think you've highlighted there Clarkson, who is currently sitting 6th in the regular season goals, and the netminder who's sitting well up the stats as well. So there'll be players to look out for, and obviously Shamont we've already mentioned, because you just never know, because he's always in the right area generally. When he's in the mood, he tends to score. So they'll be guys to definitely keep an eye out for. Then we've got Edinburgh Sunday night, and they're definitely a different proposition to previous seasons. I must admit, in previous seasons, I hope it doesn't offend anybody, occasionally I felt like it was a team of schoolboys that had arrived to play. Certainly going back some years ago, they don't look like a team of schoolboys this season. They've got Emerson, who's a great big chap anyway. But it's not just about size. It looks like a team that can play hockey, that is prepared to stand up for itself.
I think it is. I think it's a far more offensive team. Looking at some of their results and games so far, they've gone from a Richard Hartman team which was very defensively minded and trying to play a lot of trap and play on the break, to this brave new dawn where they've brought in offensive players and they've told their fans they're going to be more entertaining and what have you. And I'm looking forward to seeing them. I just wonder whether they've got the balance quite right yet. It looks like they've tried to open up in most games and go toe-to-toe with teams offensively. And they're being caught a little bit. They were 2-0 up in Fife on Saturday night, and I don't think they shut up shop. They kept pressing, and Fife clawed their way back, and I think it's happened in other games as well. So they have got a rookie coach. He sounds like a great guy. He's really strong in the community. I think the fans are buying into what he's trying to do, but I wonder whether they have to try and get the happy medium of not going immediately from that solid defensive team that played trap to opening it up, all guns blazing, trying to break games open. There's a happy medium there between the two, particularly on the road. So again, it'll be interesting to see. But looking down some of their roster, they've got guys who can score goals, and it's going to be a different Capitals team to ones we've seen in previous years. No, you're right. They've
definitely brought in players who can score. In fact, Ryan Hayes currently leads the league for scoring. Yeah. So he's a player to keep an eye out for. They've got Chubak in the nets. We've seen Chubak play before.
Yeah.
Good solid netminder. Obviously, we've seen Emerson before. He's a bear of a man.
Yeah. I think they've used their university deals well this year. I think they've got a good sponsorship arrangement that's allowed them to bring in players. And again, I'm going to sound like a really old man, but when I started watching hockey, 80s and 90s, they were the Murrayfield races. Then that building was full with 3,000 people. Again, that's a franchise I'd really like to see take off, because it's a beautiful city. Everybody loves going up there. And I just think it would be good for the league. So hopefully that this is the season where they start bringing fans back through the door, and they start challenging teams. I think they're having a few teething problems off the bat with a rookie coach and getting an identity of how they want to play. But as we spoke about before the show, it's still September, and all the teams are really learning their systems. So it'd be good to see them on Sunday and what they bring to the party.
They certainly look a more dangerous prospect, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be an interesting weekend. We'll maybe get a better idea of where we are. Maybe we'll see a little bit more. I know Lord is still obviously moving lines about a little bit at the moment, so he's obviously still deciding what's going to work best for him. I think against Fife we started to see a bit more consistency maybe in some areas, and hopefully we'll be looking to build on that this weekend.
We touched on commentary. There was the change in line combination, and Walton and Doucette went out with Haddad. I thought that was promising, because I think that they're just, the two of those, Doucette and Walton, are just such great stick handlers and off-the-cuff players. It's hard sometimes to get defensive coverage against them.
Yeah.
They're two snipers as well, and I think Joey Haddad's playing out of his skin at the moment, and can create the turnovers on his forecheck and his great cycle that can lead to chances for those two. So I think there was potential in that line certainly, which then released Thomas Kirker to play with Salters and Novato. Again, I thought potential there. Havato with his energy, and Soltis with his size and presence, I thought created space for Kirker, who looks far more comfortable as that winger, curving off the boards to receive stretch passes, rather than looking to carry the puck through the neutral zone itself. So again, it looked like a lot of potential there. Kirker's a little bit snake bitten at the moment, and he was frustrated when he came off the ice in the third period. He actually broke his stick on the glass behind the bench because he'd missed the chance, but he was creating chances and probably had his best game of the season. So he looks like a player that maybe if he gets one goal on the weekend, he could break out and get 3 or 4.
Well, it's good to see that he's got desire. I think that's probably something that Webber is looking to see for some of his players, desire.
Absolutely.
It's always good to see a player with desire, even if it's currently not going for him.
Yeah.
That's what you want, isn't it? Heart and desire, great. Great for moving the team forward.
Yeah.
Something we saw on the weekend in some of the other sports that were around. But really appreciate you taking the time to come down again tonight, John. And hopefully everybody who watches it will enjoy the programme and look forward to next week's and enjoy the games on the weekend. We'd love to see you all down at the tent, obviously to enjoy the games with us, or to enjoy the games with the boys on the webcast. So we'll look forward to that, and hopefully 2 Devils wins. Thanks very much.